Whether it is cancer or COVID, the design and development of drugs is being impacted significantly by high-performance computing. We'll find out how in this interview.
I'm Felice Lightstone. I'm a scientist at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And actually, I lead a group in computational biology where we're using high-performance computing to do exactly what you just said, to try to impact and design and develop new therapeutics for a variety of diseases.
Well, I know one of the things that you're working on is something called ATOM, A-T-O-M. Can you explain to us what that project is?
Yeah, so ATOM stands for Accelerating Therapeutic Opportunities in Medicine. And it's a great consortium of public-private institutions trying to change the paradigm of drug design. So we have universities like UCSF, National Cancer Institute, Livermore, and other national labs participating, but included in the consortium are companies. And so we have real efforts to try to use machine learning, high-performance computing to change that paradigm, because right now it takes up to 15, 17 years and over $1 billion to make a drug. We'd really like to try to use more computing, predictions, machine learning, data analytics to try to predict the safety profiles of drugs, the efficacy of those drugs so they really work in humans. There are a lot of drugs right now that I think we can save a lot of rodents, but the goal here is to save humans. And we think we can do that, really decrease the timeline from, a decade or more to hopefully less than 5 years, less than 1 year if possible.
So part of that paradigm shift, I'm guessing, is that we do things with bits and bytes instead of with mice, and I can't think of what rhymes with that. but the whole idea of being able to simulate things and not have to do them in actuality, at least at first.
Yes. So there has already been a push to use computing in general to help drug design, and this is started a few decades ago, called structure-based drug design, and it's still extremely useful and should continue. But now with the power of computing and the ability to collect the data that we have, we can apply data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to try to speed that whole process up in combination with the simulations and the structure. So what we're doing is we're trying to develop new models in machine learning. We're trying to create artificial intelligence tools and learning loops so that we can basically explore more chemical space, because right now it's quite limited, but explore more chemical space, try to predict human safety alongside with human efficacy. Usually those have been done in serial. So basically the efficacy first, then the safety, but the clinical trials are lined up with safety first and then efficacy. And so you get a lot of failures. Something like 70% of drug candidates fail in the safety trials. So if we can make drugs safe and efficacious, then we would be able to bypass 10 years of clinical trials. Not to say that we wouldn't do them, but to say that we would succeed in getting through the trials more efficiently.
And you're already doing this to some degree. Talk about how this has been applicable in such deadly situations as both cancer and COVID.
Absolutely. So we have been partnering with pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies where my group has been applying these high performance computing and machine learning tools. And here our targets have been cancer. We look at structures of proteins that have mutated, that have been implicated in 30% of all cancers. And so we are trying to design inhibitors that will exactly target those proteins. And we have succeeded. They've led to patents. we think that we can have an impact and shorten that timeline. In only about 1 year, we've been able to get to lead compounds. We've also worked on SARS-CoV-2, and that information is public on our web portal. We can provide that information so people can look at the types of chemicals we've been looking at. They're co-complexes to SARS-CoV-2 proteins, which are viral proteins, and then use that information to basically start whatever they want. The information is public. And then, of course, we have antibacterials and antimicrobial efforts. And there we have also filed a number of patents for compounds going forward.
Would you talk more a little bit about the role of simulations in getting at some of this information?
Absolutely. So here we have to understand that drugs target proteins on the whole. And no matter what, the drug will go in the body, it will go to the protein it needs to go. It's based on physics and biology and chemistry. And so what we're doing in simulation is we're trying to figure out, well, what is the state of the protein? Proteins are not static. They're in water, they're moving around, they're flexible, but it's the little concave holes and the concave areas in the protein surface where the drug binds. And that's where the exciting dynamics happens. It's where you say, well, if I had a really small molecule and it goes to this protein, is it really going to stay there? Is it going to stick around long enough to be effective? And so this is where lots of molecular dynamics simulations is extremely useful. We're able to see the molecule bind in the correct binding spot. We're able to see if it's interacting with the protein properly, to increase direct interactions between the small molecule and the protein. And then we're also able to see if there are modifications or other protein states that the protein might assume, and then the molecule might pop out. So this is where simulation can help a lot. It's very exciting, and we plan to continue.
And with these simulations, you actually see these kinds of things going on, right? It's a visual.
It is. Well, okay. So I like to see the visual. Not all of my team needs to see the visual. They like to see graphs or they like to see numbers. And certainly the machine learning people like to see data. So we're trying to take the next step, which is to take all that simulation data and make it useful for machine learning as well. Because to be honest, the physics-based simulations are still slow. They're great to look at. But when we really want to make a drug that is useful for every type of human, because we're all a little bit different, then we really need to think about what is the flexibility, what are the possibilities that this protein could be different between you and me and your neighbor. And then we have to think about, is it really going to be useful for all types of people that we have? So the dynamics is interesting, but machine learning really can conquer the breadth and the type of variability that each of us has. And so we're hoping to be able to use that kind of technique to really make it a useful drug in the future.
It just seems to me that there's got to be a tremendous amount of collaboration going on here. You mentioned physics and biology and chemistry, and of course we're talking about high performance computing and computational stuff and hardware to make that happen. Do you want to talk a little bit about your team and all the different disciplines that come together to make this possible?
Well, I think you've named them all. So my background is computational chemistry. So I'm a chemist at heart. But I have worked with a lot of great physicists, material scientists, computer scientists to really make this happen. On the other end is biologists. They actually know the problem, the systems, the animals and the cells that we have to be effective in. They're taking all the measurements and they test every computational prediction as a hypothesis, and they test them experimentally. And we get that kind of information back in a weekly system, integrated team. It's been exciting to work with all these different kinds of people. I think the key here is that no one group or one discipline could actually make drugs. It really is an integrated team that makes everything successful. And with all brilliant people, we're able to make new drugs and come up with new ideas to try to alleviate the next pandemic that may or may not happen. I hope it doesn't, of course, but applying these types of tools really can make a difference to prepare us for the future.
Shifting gears just a little bit here to the SC21 conference. I know one of your leaders there at the lab is highly involved this year. Bronis Sapinski is the chair of the conference this year. Do you want to talk about the role of the laboratory in the SC conferences over the years?
We definitely see SC as a way to bring to the world what we've been doing at Livermore. And I think that is the key, is that we want to share what we've been doing. If we can partner with others to do it, that's fantastic. And SC is a great forum to do that.
And you mentioned how this information is available on your website, but it's one thing to be able to look at it on a screen, right? And quite another to be able to actually talk with people face to face. I know that's one of the things about the conference this year. Last year, it was all online. It was all virtual. It needed to be. This year, there's going to be a live component in St. Louis. And that's pretty exciting that we're, as a result of the progress that's been made in treating COVID, we're going to be able to be together face to face.
Absolutely. I think that the whole point of the conference is to meet and talk to people. It gives us new opportunities to really share our ideas and to do it face to face, because I can't tell you the number of people. I'm just walking along the hallway, right? And then you bump into someone and it's a short conversation. It leads to something greater. It's very difficult to do that virtually. I'm still happy that they had the virtual conference the previous year, but certainly the face-to-face component will be and get us back all together.
One of the things that is going to be a prominent part of the conference again this year is women in HPC. I wonder if you would just like to address any women and girls who might be viewing this interview and talk to them about your career and any advice or encouragement you might want to offer them.
Well, I have to say that I do encourage girls, women to come into computer science, and I did it through an application through biology, and I never knew that I would end up using some of the world's greatest computers. Actually, for the last 20 years, I've been doing this, right? So I think that there are tons of avenues and opportunities for girls and women to pursue this field. I personally enjoy it. I think that I started as an engineer, discovered that I really wasn't into engineering as much as I should be, changed my field to chemistry to get my PhD, and still ended up using a lot of big computers. So if you're in that space where you love an application, but really want to be able to use the tools and technologies that high performance computing give you, then please pursue that, because it's really exciting to always be on the cutting edge of what's coming out. So,
well, Felice Lightstone, thank you so much for sharing some of that enthusiasm with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you to you, our visitors, our viewers, for watching this edition of SC21 TV.